Hi, everyone. We're just waiting for Wade to come on. He's on his way. Thank you.
Hello.
Hey, Wade. How are you?
I am good. I just got off
Excellent.
a prep call with Randall from HCSC, and I just got back from TechVision's conference in San Diego.
Wow.
And I have not had time to prepare any materials for today. So I am going to use this as a teaching exercise to show how anyone can look at this information and in 5 minutes can come up with a pitch that you could use on a phone with a potential customer. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
And I just want to, before you start, I just want to give an update just for all the 8 people that are on this call, that we are at around 40 registrations for this webinar, so we'd love if everybody pitched in and started pushing and promoting it. So that's my spiel, and take it away.
All right, and I was actually, when I saw your promotion email go out yesterday, or the day before yesterday, I really wanted to hop on that with a kumbaya rah-rah moment email. On top of all this, I threw my back out on Saturday, so walking for me has been an interesting experience for the past 3 days. But I didn't get a chance to. Oh, that's okay. This is something I've done before, so I'm familiar with the situation. It's just it reminds me that I would never live with chronic pain. I just step in front of a bus because life is not worth living. But in this scenario, I didn't have a chance to actually hop on and put that email together, but I wanted to because from everyone's standpoint, from the sales standpoint, oh my gosh, this is I'll get the name right here, HCSC, which is Healthcare Services Corporation, and that's a wrapper for Blue Shield of Illinois, Blue Shield Montana, Blue Shield New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Texas. It is a massive roll-up of dozens of healthcare, dental, life, disability management platform systems companies that cover half the country, literally. And this is a customer of ours that has really leveraged Radiant Logic in a number of really powerful use cases. So if there's ever was a webinar you wanted to get someone to who says, I don't understand why I need Radiant Logic, I don't see the, AD does that, or Okta does that, or yada yada does that. This is a nuts and bolts real world customer who's gone deep in our product and solved some major issues with giving and controlling access to big data, filtering exposure of attributes to the cloud, being able to integrate MIT Kerberos into an authentication process, able to add database information into their LDAP view for their service support portal, being able to publish basically an LDAP API internally for authentication authorization, and then feed that with whatever data is needed for whatever platform people are using. So this is a really beautiful implementation of Radiant across a whole bunch of large use cases. And Randall is going to talk in detail about the challenges and the benefits of Radiant Logic. If you look at the slides, he's broken them down into a challenge, what was the key points they had to resolve, and how did FID resolve those. So this is really a primer in solving real-world problems on a massive scale of an organization with 16 million members. So anybody out there in the healthcare space, anybody out there in any of the pharmaceuticals, insurance, even the financial space area, large numbers of members, large numbers of customers, large numbers of complex systems and challenges, multiple platforms, big data. You're going to hear from Randall at HCSC exactly how to solve those problems, exactly how they resolve that on a case-by-case basis. It's not a high-level flyover conversation, this is a down in the, this is the problem, this is how we solved it. This is the problem, this is how we solved it. And so it answers that question for a lot of people of, well, what does Radiologic really do? Where is it going to benefit me? What is it going to solve in terms of problems? And that, I think, is an excellent way to bridge that conversation with people when you're talking to them on the phone, is actively engage them in the conversation of, hey, what identity management problems do you have? Are you guys facing problems with integrating big data? I know you've got big data. There is no authentication authorization layer inherently in big data. You need to be able to wrap that in something. Let's see how one of the largest healthcare organizations in the country did that. Hey, you've got to integrate multiple directories into your cloud application that only talks to Active Directory. That's great. Let's take a look and see how HCSC was able to pull data in from databases and directories and make it look like Active Directory for their applications, so the applications didn't have to do anything different, but they were able to use all the identity sources that they had as they existed natively. And let's look at what it looks like to integrate across a dozen different companies with a dozen different business drivers and a dozen different chiefs in each organization and build a unified view that doesn't require everybody to become a square peg in a square hole, but lets each organization still maintain and operate in its own autonomous way, but gain the benefit of tremendous amounts of shared information, shared services, integration and migration to the cloud, accessing big data, all the different use cases that are outlined in Randall's presentation. Those are going to be critical to any organization. So this is a real chance to hear from the field what the challenges are. They'll align with the challenges you have, and then actually hear how Radiant Logic solved those problems in the real world. These are deployed solutions. These aren't, he's not talking about things we're going to do in 2 years because we just bought the product. HCSC is a long-term customer. They've been at this. In fact, he'll only talk about things he's deployed. He doesn't want to talk about future plans because internally they're not comfortable sharing that information for business purposes, but definitely is going to talk about things they've done, benefits they've received, real-world experiences. So I will put together a couple of slides and get those over to Kimberly to put out so that we can get that information distributed with a couple of talking points. But I think the key function and benefit here is you've got one of the largest organizations in the healthcare space with complexity of multiple constituencies, both on the customer side. You've got regulations, you've got multiple business entities working holistically and working independently. And this plays in every space. It plays in the government, it plays in financial services, it plays in manufacturing, it plays in any place in the healthcare space, it plays in education. All these challenges are common. And these are real world solutions that we can point to. And so I think this is an excellent opportunity to come to the table, spend an hour, listen to a real customer talk about real world solutions, and come away with, hey, if you find one thing that solves one problem, it was more than worth the time you spent listening to Randall at HCSC explain what they're doing with Radiant Logic and why it's so important, why it's fundamental and structural for them in their organization. So today's run through was pretty concise or short. Again, I didn't need to spin up a technological explanation because I think this is really applicable to everybody. It is, again, reiterating, these are real world challenges, real world solutions. They're going to apply to everyone that you talk to. So you can hear it from the horse's mouth. And, you know, you've already done your holiday shopping. The turkey's already defrosted and ready to go for Thanksgiving in a couple weeks. So what else you got to do but sit back, relax, all your projects are wrapped up for the year, and spend a little time with Radiant Logic and HCSC and see what's possible in the world when you have as powerful a tool as ours. And yeah, Blue Cross Blue Shield is I think if I've got the slide here, largest consumer-owned healthcare insurance company in the United States. They operate Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Illinois, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Montana, Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Mexico, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Oklahoma and Texas, and Dearborn National. So in California, they separated Blue Cross and Blue Shield as two different companies, but in these entities, apparently they still operate as a unified organization across those two pieces. So as Steve mentioned, it is Blue Cross Blue Shield in these major states. And this is, if you think about it, these are some of the largest populated states in the country, Illinois and Texas. These are massive healthcare organizations. This is 15 million members and 23,000 employees. So there's not a customer you're going to talk to on the phone where this scale doesn't apply, and where they're not going to be able to benefit from this. If they're smaller than this, that's even better, because definitely everything here works at scale, so it's going to work even nicer and smoother in their environment. So I'll open this up to anyone that has questions. If you want to unmute everybody, I don't know if there's specifics that you wanted to ask, or and if there's something in particular in terms of you've got a customer you've brought to the webinar, you want me to highlight something for them, definitely let me know that too, because I can definitely put in a pitch and have it sound like it was just part of the presentation, but actually have it directed to somebody that you want to hear a particular story or anecdote or use case about. So,
I unmuted everybody's line. Yeah, so if anybody has questions, they should be able to ask them.
Okay. And I think a lot of people muted themselves, so if you're busy talking and we're not responding, it's because you might still be on mute on your end. Looking at the control panel here.
Wait, do you know, are they using us as well for externals, or is it just internals?
The use cases, as we went through it with Randall, and again, the use cases are a little bit on the higher level generic side. There's definitely third-party care management software. A lot of this seems to be enterprise side, but there is this particular piece here talks about conversion of custom access to member relationships. That's going to be group management within inside the system. So most of this seems to be related to getting their 23,000 people access to all the applications they need to manage their 16 million, but not necessarily holding the 16 million accounts or identities ourselves.
Okay.
And that's actually a good question. It might be a good one to, in fact, I'll add that in. We have questions at the end. I'll add that in at the end. You know, is this all internal? And on the customer side, what does that world look like? Or the member side?
It's very imperative. And we can take this offline. There's an opportunity in flight that I've got another Blue that's looking at us for potential externals, and when we can take it offline, just see if there's any similarities to how they're using it to how we proposed.
Now, this is Denise. What I can tell you is they just purchased ICS, and that's being used to facilitate a directory migration and decommission of eDirectory for 500,000 providers. So the reason, like you said, Wade, he didn't really address future use cases, so he probably didn't mention that because that's just being deployed. So they'll be using it for providers, but he doesn't support, Randall, that is, the member side of the house. So.
Yeah, and we see that fairly commonly. In fact, at the TechVision conference I was at earlier this week, one of the topics there was the segregation between internal and external, internal corporate IT and identity management, and external customer management, and CIAM solutions actually sort of evolving more in a parallel track, and the attempt by the industry now to pull them in to a a more mature model that exists on the internal side, but that is a common scenario where two different groups are managing that, and they don't necessarily even communicate with each other in a lot of scenarios. You know, Derek, if the internal and external are both in play there, or is it just an external group looking for an external solution? Or will we?
Derek, I think you're on mute. I can hear you through the wall.
Oh, well, yeah, Denise, if you don't repeat what he's saying, that's fine too. Wow. Okay.
Oh, well.
And if you come back in at some point, go ahead and interject, Derek, if you get the yeah, I see you playing with the phone buttons there. Something's got you on your end. Anyone else have any questions, or anyone else have any particular scenarios or use cases?
Are we going to be recording the person from Blue Cross this time?
Yes. Yeah, my understanding is we don't have any problems recording this one. The last one was an anomaly. They really had some internal stickiness with the lawyers about anything being recorded. And I think I don't know, there was probably enough lawyers nearby, given how recently the merger had gone on, that they got a say, where in these scenarios we're not running into that, so recording shouldn't be an issue. And I would have loved to recorded the last one, because that was such a good presentation. For anybody who was able to see it live, the information coming from them was perfect.
Hey Wade, it's Derek again. I had to flip over my VoIP phone, or my phone was underwater, so you guys couldn't hear me. I couldn't really hear much of you after a while. But I did have a second question about recording. If you could repeat it, and then I don't know if you had another question for me.
Yeah, well, so the question about recording is we are going to record this one. We couldn't last time because of legal considerations, but this will be a normal recorded full session. My question to you was, while you're probably underwater, do you know if the opportunity you're talking about is both internal and external, or are you talking to just the external team? Because we find many cases it's two different groups and they don't necessarily talk.
So there is an external opportunity. The account is Anthem, so they are actually have us deployed. But what's nice about this, and what will be valuable, is our original champion left the organization, and we've got a new guy that's trying to understand how to leverage us and do more with us. So this will be a perfect fit for him, both internally and if there is a use case that we can deliver to him externally, that's great. But it sounds like it's more internal, so that's fine either way.
Well, and that's good for me to know, because what I can do on my end of the presentation is I can wrap the external piece into it. I can point out how this is a internal benefit that Randall pointed out, and when you're facing that same problem externally with members, with customers, with the external facing identities, these same problems are going to come up, and this is going to be solved this way and that way. So I can wrap that into the conversation, knowing that he's out there. And hopefully then bridge for him the use cases into his set of needs. So that's good.
Cool.
Again, that's a good thing for me to know. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to circle back next week just to talk a little bit more specific, or I think more generically would probably make the most sense.
Yeah, we can. I mean, if you got some specifics, I'm not above, really getting, oddly aligned with his requirements. I'm not going to call him out on the line, but yeah, if you have specifics that are, because again, there's a fair number of use cases here. If there's a couple that I can easily align directly to what he's trying to do, then I can point back to those and make that point really, really strongly.
Excellent. That's great.
Yeah. And that goes for, and again, that's something that just dawned on me a few minutes ago as I was doing this off the top of my head, but that goes for everybody. If you've got somebody that you've teed up for these, or you think's going to be on the call, and there's a a way around the topic to tailor it to them, or to emphasize a particular point, or to point out that, migrating to Azure with Radiant Logic is wonderful and easy, and that's their big challenge because they've got multiple domains and databases, and we can mention that. I'm more than happy to tailor my conversation to those kind of points. It's easy to work it in. I mean, all the stuff we do is pretty cross-platform, cross-situational. So again, you can shoot me an email and say, hey, I think so-and-so is going to be on, he's registered. This is what we've been talking about. Is there a way to highlight something along those lines in the presentation? And again, I won't call them out, Joe, this is for you, a request coming in from Cincinnati, but I will make it part of the presentation so it has some resonance for them, hopefully.
For those of you who love the CVS webinar, you should know that Nathan Harris from CVS will be at the Customer Advisory Board. So get your customers to that and prospects, and they can talk to them there.
Yeah, and for everyone that hasn't been to a CAB before, these are an amazing opportunity because you're basically got your prospect sitting at dinner next to somebody who's already rolled out the product, who thinks we're amazing, and is getting a free meal. So it is some of the best endorsement opportunities you'll have. There are really some Radiant Logic zealots out there who recognize the value of it and love to talk about it with everybody around them. So this is the biggest concentration of fans that we have. So if you've got an opportunity to bring a prospect to there, or even if you've got a customer that you can bring there that can then build the community with other people, and if you got a customer that you think there's upsell opportunities to, this is a chance for them to sit next to somebody and go, wow, I never thought of using it that way. That's amazing. There's a really powerful exchange of information while people sit around and talk, and they do. I mean, I've sat there and watched, cabs where for an hour there were just huddles of people exchanging, massive amounts of information about their experiences with each other. And I get to talk too, so that's always a plus. The other thing, and again, I'm sure Matt will make this point as we go into Gartner IAM, the opportunity to schedule a meeting in a suite with a solutions architect and your salesperson, yourself, Matt, Mark, Dieter, Michelle, is golden. We learn so much in that hour from customers on what they're working on, what they're doing, what they need, existing customers, feedback on how projects are going, what else they're looking at, can we do things. It's an excellent opportunity to get face-to-face with really some of the best support team in the room. If you've ever sat in a meeting with Dieter and watched him work, it's somewhat magical. So don't let that opportunity go by. Grab those slots, book early, book often. Everybody you can, I would pitch that as the best hour someone will spend at Gartner, because there's not a presentation at Gartner for an hour that's going to give them more value than sitting with Radiant and talking to us about how we solve their problems for them. And if you think about it, I mean, Carnival, which is a massive, is it Carnival or Royal Caribbean? Royal Caribbean started in a conversation at Gartner IAM in the conference room. Where we sat down and they said, hey, this is the challenge we have. How would you guys solve this? And we just spitballed what if we could do this and what if we could do that? And it turned out to be that giant multi-million-dollar solution that has now bridged us into a massive Navy contract because we had a proven way of doing onshore, offshore identity deployments. That came out of a Gartner initially sit-down meeting of, tell me about the real world and how we might be able to help you. So take advantage. Any other questions, comments, feedback? And again, if it's customer related, you're more than welcome offline to shoot me an email and saying, hey, would you highlight the ability to do extended attributes for favorite food? And I'll make that a point.
This has been really great, Way. I actually think this has been super really helpful on many levels.
Excellent. And
A lot of great ideas.
I'll put together a couple slides and some bullet points just so people have that as a reference when they're on the phone. Amazingly, I was able to fill a whole half hour here, which is great. Didn't know I had that much in me. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ray.
All right. Bye.
Bye.